Hi guys, in today's video we'll be taking a look at the ListBox control, which allows you to display multiple data points on your Windows Forms app at the same time. So let's jump into Visual Studio and take a look. Before we begin, I just want to remind you that I'm doing a new C# video every day. So if you don't want to miss those, be sure to subscribe. So the first thing we need to do is create a new project. We're going to be using the Windows Forms app .NET Framework C# template. We will call this one ListBox. Click Create. And we will drag out a button. And we will drag out a ListBox. Just resize that so it takes up the full width of the screen. And we will double click on our button to get the on-click method, and we will double click our form to get the form load method. And now we've got our ListBox. ListBox allows you to display a list of items essentially. And what we need to do is populate that with some data. So if we go into our form1 load method and we make an array of strings, so we'll say var names equals new list string. Oh. And we'll put some names in here. So we'll say James, Simon, Steve, Connor, Harry. That should do us for now. And now that we've got our array of names, we need to assign it to our list view's data source. So if we just give our list view a friendlier name, we'll call it LST names. And if we go back into our form1 load method, and we'll do LST names dot data source equals names. So when our program runs, we'll just create this array and we'll bind it to the list view. So let's click Start. You'll see here we now have all of our names from our array displayed in our ListBox. There's a few other things we can do with ListBoxes though. We can have them be multi-column. So we can say LST names dot multi-column equals true. What this will do is it'll try and spread the names out across the list box to avoid vertical scrolling. So what we might need to do is make it much smaller, and we'll go ahead and run that. And you see now, to avoid the vertical scrolling, it's now spreading them across different columns. So that's quite interesting. That's if you have a UI case for that, that's very easy to achieve. Let's undo that and we'll show you what it looks like if it doesn't need to do that. You see, because there was no need to push them across, because there's lots of vertical space, it then doesn't do that. So it's good to know. Now we can look at enabling or disabling the list. So if we double click on this button, and what we'll do is we'll toggle whether the list is available. So we'll say LST names dot enabled equals not LST names dot enabled. I've covered this in a previous video, but the exclamation point syntax with a bool just basically flips the value of the bool. So we're just saying this is equal to the opposite of what it is equal. And if we go ahead and run that, you'll see, so by default it's enabled, so we can select the names. If we click the button, then it becomes disabled, and we're now not able to click any of the items. We can just toggle it back over, and you'll see they become selectable again. And this is important because you can actually bind the selection of these to an event. So let's have a look at that. Let's close this down and we'll go back into our form1 load, and we'll now go into our LST names and we'll say selected index changed. So this is an event, and we've not looked at how you can assign events, but it's quite easy. So we could just double click on that and we could say plus equals, and then we say we want a new delegate. So a new delegate, which is essentially like a function, and we open and close our parentheses, and whenever the selected index changes, we'll then have this code run. So what we want to do is just show a message box. Show. Now we need to try and get access to the name, and we know that the selected index has changed. So on the ListBox object, we actually have access to that index. So we can say var current index equals, and we'll just go to the LST names ListBox and we'll get the selected index value. So we now know if they clicked on the first one, we'll get a 0. If they clicked on the second one, we'll get a 1, etc., etc. What we now need to do is pull that value from this names array. So we'll say names, and then we'll add in our square brackets, and then we'll just say that we want the current index. And as we've looked at before, the square bracket syntax just pulls out an item at whichever integer value you pass in. So that will give us the correct name. And actually what we should probably do is just add a string at the front and just say hello, something like that. So now if we run our program, we click on Simon, it says hello Simon. Click on Harry, it says hello Harry. There is another way you can do this without having to bind a delegate manually to the list item, and what we can do is just double click, and actually we get the index changed in here. The reason I did this through the event up here is because we actually had the names array in scope inside here. If we look here, we don't actually have access to names. So we could remedy that by pulling it out and having names be a field on our class. And then we could just copy and paste this into here, get rid of this. And if we run our program, actually that's something to point out as well. So did you see what happened there? So if we press start, as the form loads, the index gets set to 0, so we get that pop-up happen straight away. Not really a big deal, but it's something to watch out for, just because as you bind data to it, well, the selected index just gets changed to 0, and that's just a default behavior. But if we click on Steve, we get the correct name as before when we bound to the event handler. So that's the basics of list boxes. They're really useful for showing a list of values from, say, a database or from an array like we did, and then you can sort of bind the user click event, and you can kind of, we could even open a new form if we wanted to, but in this case we just use the message box. Hi, I hope you found that video useful. If you have any comments or feedback, then please leave me a comment below. I'm currently doing new videos every single day, so if you'd like to be notified about those, then hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.